Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. You found it. This is Daily Dose Radio. This is your Bible bistro on the internet, the finest Bible bistro on the internet, serving up fresh Bible every day. And today we're in Psalm 9. Now, we've been in the second part of this psalm this week, and today we're right here in the middle, verses 15 and 16. So if you have your Bible, why don't you turn there with me, and I'm going to read from my translation. The nations will sink down into the pit that they have made. In the net that they hid are their own feet snared. The Lord is known by the judgment he executes, so the wicked is taken by the works of his hands. Higgaion, Selah. There's a couple of things here that we want to make note of. First of all, the pit. We've seen the pit before. We actually, just not too many psalms back, Psalm 7, we had the pit. It was dug out, it was excavated and dug out by the wicked man. And we find the pit. It's not just in 7 and in 9, but it's all over the Psalter. It's always a tool of the enemy. It's always laid in wait for the innocent or for the poor man or for the afflicted man or something like that. It's all throughout the psalm as an instrument or a tool of the wicked. And here it is attributed to the nations. Now, throughout this second half of the psalm, I've translated what King James translates this, the heathen. But the word I've translated, it can also be translated nations, and I prefer that because that distinguishes those who are not Israel from Israel, those who are not in the faith community, the others. And that may be a way that we could translate this. The other people groups out in the world that don't follow the Lord, these folks are the ones who will sink down into the pit that they've made because not only don't they follow the Lord, but they willfully rebel. It's a part of our nature to willfully rebel. And these nations, they have given themselves to it. Well, and actually, we could go back to Psalm 2. Remember, in Psalm 2, the very first thing that we have there is, why do the nations rage, and the peoples imagine a vain thing? So we set up for ourselves that not only are there wicked individuals and smaller groups of wicked individuals, but there are also nations that rebel against God. They don't want anything to do with him. And so here we have that in Psalm 9. The nations sink down into the pit that they've made. And ladies and gentlemen, there are plenty of nations who have dug a pit for the righteous. And what has happened to them? Well, they're no longer around because they've sunk down into that same pit. And that's always the case with the wicked man. He's always going to fall into the pit that he creates because the Lord's going to turn that on his head. Not only is it a pit, but you'll notice in verse 15, it's a net. The net that he's laid becomes a snare for his own feet. And so the pit, the net, every design that the wicked creates usually turns back on them because the Lord is the one who reverses the effect. Then notice 16. The Lord is known by the judgment he executes. The wicked are known by their devices, the pit, the snare. The Lord is known by his judgment. And you notice how this judgment is not only for the wicked or the unbeliever, but it's also for the believer. So there's judgment for the believer. If you look back up into verse 13, be gracious to me, O Lord, look upon my affliction because of those that hate me. So the judgment of the Lord in that case is mercy. To look on the nations who rebel against God, the judgment in that case is going to be punishment. And then there's a wonderful little comparison here. So the wicked is taken by the works of his hands. The Lord is known by his judgments. The wicked, how are they known? The works of their hands, that is, i.e., the pit and the snare. And then you have this word higgaion here at the end, which means meditation. Sometimes with music, maybe sometimes without, not really sure, but it's a moment of silence to meditate on what has just been said. And then the next largest command for silence is Selah. And we have that right here in verse 16. So join me again tomorrow. We're going to come in after the Selah and look at verses 17 and 18 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.